but the concept. The concept that's in the book. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's our favorite topic.
Favorite topic. Favorite topic. It's also the favorite topic of a lot of people. Evidently, a lot of companies are wanting a company of owners. And many don't have one.
Yeah.
So, big problem.
Yeah, it's a big problem when you don't have ownership on your employees. But we'll get into that in a minute. We're about to go live.
Fire your employees. That's what I told a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas company. I'll tell you why when we come back.
Now is author Daren Martin.
Culture is the game. If you don't change the culture, you don't change the company.
Great cultures over the course of 10 years will yield a 746% increase in your net profit.
Holy moly!
1% in the top 1% is worth 12 in the bottom 1%. Called the culture architect for a reason.
We need to get into it.
Okay. And welcome back after a week off of company culture. We missed last week because we were traveling.
Yep, we were in Boston.
We were in Boston. We were there for HubSpot's
Inbound.
big inbound conference. Had a fantastic time. Great weather. Loved it. It was Tucker's first trip, second trip.
Wow,
First,
fourth?
Yeah,
Fourth
so
trip?
he's been all over the world. So today we're going to talk about a subject that we love. In fact, I can't believe we've done this many episodes and haven't talked about it. But it's a company of owners. Wrote a whole book about it. And it was actually born, it was an idea that was born out of a conversation I had with the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar oil and gas company. And I was talking to him in the hallway, and I said, Dave, you need to fire your employees. He's like, Martin, I can't fire all my employees.
Fire your employees.
Fire your employees. I said, fire them all. Get rid of all of them.
Wow.
People are going to love me for that. And then what I said, no, because you don't want employees. You want people who act like owners. I was obviously making a point. I wasn't really recommending that he get rid of everybody. But my point was, look, walk down these halls, check out the kind of things that are going on in the work. And there are people at any given company who take ownership, who
Right.
are acting like owners, who, treat the money as if it was their own. They treat the company as if it was their own. They guard it, they protect it, they advance it. They do all sorts of things that are kind of owner
right.
behavior, right?
They show up on time because it feels like it's their own business.
Absolutely. And you don't have to cajole them to work. How do you like that word?
Cajole, that's a cool word.
You don't have to cajole them to
They're
get them to work.
excited, right?
They work whether you're in the room or not in the room, et cetera, et cetera. That's owner behavior. So how often do you see that at a typical company? Well, obviously, we've talked a lot about the fact that the typical engagement rate at a U.S. company is 29%. So that means you've got a lot of non-ownership going on within the company. And so kind of the question we want to talk about today, why is that?
Why is that?
What can you do about it? And I want you to listen in from two different perspectives, okay? So if you are a manager, an owner, or CEO, I want you to hear this show from the standpoint of what do you need to do in order to create that company of owners? How do you create a culture where people act like owners? If you're an individual contributor, you might say, whoa, hold on, I'm not responsible for the culture. Be listening for the little bits and gems, and we may do a whole episode on act like an owner. But be listening for what you need to be doing to really have that owner mentality so that you are one of those people when, you're going down the hall and people go, whoa, that Sally, that Mark, that whoever acts like an owner. They're
really
a
makes a
part of a
difference.
company of owners.
It makes you stand out. Makes you unfireable, I would say.
Unfireable. How to be unfireable. That's actually a great show topic. So what are owner killers at a company? Because I'm convinced it's a culture problem. It's not a employee problem. Why are people not acting like owners? What are some things you think that would keep people from acting like an owner at a company?
Micromanagement.
That's a big one.
Being afraid.
So when someone is constantly, like, oh, well, you need to do it this way, not that way, and they're micromanaging
Is it done? Is it done? Is
every
it done?
little
Is it done?
decision you make,
instead of
Okay.
asking for a deadline and then expecting the employee to meet that deadline.
And yeah, by the way, micromanagement always shows up every time I ask in a teaching or a class or instructional or from stage, and I ask what do you not like in a boss, or what do you not like in somebody that you work with? Micromanagement is always like top of the heap.
It's
one of
very
the big ones.
stressful, and stress leads to not sleeping, and not sleeping. Well, I could go on.
Well, and you take less initiative
Right.
if you're being micromanaged.
You're
Then
just
it's
waiting.
hey, what's the point? You're going to do it anyway.
Why take initiative? Just wait for them to tell me how to do it 600 ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So micromanagement. You said something else.
Fear.
Fear's a big one. When people are walking around and they're afraid of making a decision. There was a person that
Afraid of making the wrong decision. Afraid of making the wrong decision that you feel like it's the right decision in your gut, and then you're like, what if it's the wrong decision?
Yeah, and it's just that anxiety is associated with,
Yeah.
what if I get, chastised for this, or what if I screw it up, or what if it doesn't work out well?
What else?
What else? So, well, first of all, I don't want to move away from fear quite so quickly, because I think fear breeds a CYA culture. When you get a fearful environment, then all of a sudden people are.
What does CYA mean?
CYA means cover your ass.
Oh,
A cover your ass environment.
acronym.
It's an acronym.
But
So,
what does that look like? A cover your ass environment.
okay, well, when all of your energy goes into trying to avoid being on the radar, right? So it's safer to not speak up at a meeting than to speak up at a meeting. It's safer to kind of, not put your 2 cents in on something that could change the trajectory of a project, but you're not sure it's going to work out. And so instead of making that change suggestion, you just accept things as they are.
I thought cover your ass environment meant like not taking accountability, like
Well,
writing it off to somebody else.
Yeah, certainly there's that as well. It's not my fault, it's so-and-so's fault,
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah.
So lack of true empowerment. Have you worked at a company where you felt truly empowered?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I work at a company now where I feel truly empowered.
Okay, how do you sense that? What's that like?
It's like I have an idea, and I say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" But I'm not asking you for permission. I'm telling you, this is a great idea. This is the plan. This is why I think it would work. And if you say no, we discuss it. We don't write each other off right away. You know what I mean?
Okay, but if you want to do something, you do it. If you
I-
want to spend some money, you spend it. If you want to invest in something,
I
you
do
do
feel
it.
empowered to go out and try new things and play and learn and experiment, and then come back and say, "Hey, I did this thing and I tried that thing and it looks really great." Empowerment creates that environment of constant learning and trying, which is always improving the company, right? Always improving our business.
Yeah, so I think one of my absolute favorite consulting gigs I had, I was going to a very large company, Fortune 100, maybe Fortune 50, for a year and a half, and I was spending a week out there every month working on some culture change and pushing through an initiative that they had. And I got to sit, right next to the president's office, so it came with a high degree of authority. But nobody really told me what to do. They said, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's what we want to happen. So just go make it happen. And I could meet with whoever I wanted to meet with. I could set up, training. I just kind of had the rule of the roost, as they say, in order to get what I thought needed to happen. It was the most freeing. And I think it was definitely one of the projects on which I was at my absolute best, because there wasn't this pressure to, well, yeah, but you need to do this, you need to do that. And not that feedback isn't helpful at points. But I've been in other situations where it's a very specific, I want you to do these 3 things. You do it from this time frame to that time frame. And that, that can be called for, but I just, I find that I thrive a lot better in a really truly empowered environment. Do you think that's true for everybody, or are some people exception to that?
I don't know. Maybe some people, especially if they're more structured, they need that exact. But it comes back to the kindergartners, right? The kindergartners did well because they were working and learning on the fly. They're learning how to make this thing happen while they're doing it, instead of spending all their time making a plan and mapping it out. And then when they get to the middle, and then they have to go back and make a new plan when there's a roadblock. You know what I mean? Instead of just going for it, make it happen, right?
How much more could companies get accomplished if they did have that? They built that environment of empowerment and
Right.
said, okay, set some direction, let's go. And then you're checking in at points to find out kind of what the progress is. But it's not, like you said, the micromanaging. It's not the constant lack of empowerment.
Right. And then what happens is you get to this point where you're able to cut and kill projects sooner and without wasting too much time by just going and trying. Go try. When we get stuck, let's not go back and replan and think it. Just let's cut.
You can zig when you need to zig and zag when and you're not
Exactly.
waiting on 18 signatures,
Yep.
et cetera. Controlling leadership. I know this is not a problem. Nobody faces this ever. But have you ever worked at a job where you had highly controlling leadership?
Yes.
And what's that like?
Oh, it's stress again. It just brings out anxiety. You're scared. It brings back fear of making decision. You don't feel empowered. You're just controlled. It's like micromanagement. It's all in that same stew pot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when people, all roads have to go through them, they have to approve every little thing.
Stuff takes forever.
I can be a little bit that way, true or not true.
I think you were the first year we started, but I think you.
I think when I first ran my business, I was very much that way.
I think-
not this business, but I mean a previous one. I was so, okay, I had to touch every single little thing, and it's a crazy way to be
But I think
as a leader.
But for some leaders, it's about, especially if you didn't hire those people, you don't know them and you don't know how their performance is, you didn't bring them with you from another company. It's a little bit, sometimes a little bit is okay because you're trying to learn, you're trying to trust, right? And it's not all often given. Sometimes it has to be earned, right? When we first started working, you wanted to see everything. You had a lot of questions and I don't know what. And now you don't question because
Well, and there is
by
that.
working with me, you know that I'm doing the right thing for the right, interest for the right reason with the right budget, so on and so
So there's
forth.
a certain amount of direction, though, that does go early on in a position. If that's still happening months and years later, that's a different kind of problem,
Then you
right?
hired the wrong
when
person, I think.
when you've got somebody new, there's a lot of direction that's
Yes.
needed. That's not micromanagement. That's not controlling leadership.
think
That's just they don't know the ropes. And they're having
Learning,
to
right?
learn those
Learning
things.
about this, because even when you come from a similar industry and you get hired in a company, sometimes you still have to learn their particulars, their brand, all these things. So it's good to just check, and that's fine.
Okay, let me give you one more, and then I want to shift to talk about what companies can do to really create more of that company of owners. But lack of direction. When people don't know what the company's about, what they're supposed to be accomplishing, what the vision is, what the mission is, it's hard to really step in there and do things if you have no idea what we're even trying to accomplish.
You
right?
can't take initiative if you don't know what the direction is. It's like trying to drive a car without knowing what direction you're going.
Yeah,
Left,
or
right, straight,
what's
behind.
what's the
U-turn?
where are we driving to?
Are we
just
driving
start
a
driving.
plane? Are we driving a boat? Are we driving a car? What are
So, I find this a lot at companies that managers, people at the manager level, people at the, CEO level, at the board level, they say, oh, yeah, well, everybody in the company knows what we're about. They clearly know what we stand for and what we're trying to accomplish. And then you get down into the trenches.
What's the percentage you think?
And people go, well, I saw something recently that managers thought that 78% of their people would know exactly what the company's about. And you got down to the real numbers and it was something like 27, or it was much, which ironically might coincide very well with the high engagement, right? Maybe the people that are highly engaged at a company are engaged because they know what the heck is going on
yes.
and what are we trying to accomplish.
And what their purpose is. I mean, I was working at a company where we had 143 employees. When we finally polled to see who knew what our mission was, what our purpose was, and what the company was about, and why we do what we do, we got 2.
Yeah, not good. So I
But
want
if you
to.
asked the owner, he would have said, everybody knows.
So I want to. I want to challenge.
Everybody in the whole world knows.
Yeah, they all know. Of course, they all
Everybody
know.
knows.
So I want to challenge leaders and people that are listening out there. If you've got direct reports or people, ask them. Get in a meeting and just ask them. Say, take out a piece of paper. I want you to write what you think are the 3 most important things to us as an organization. Or you can do it by department or what you're about. Obviously, you want it to play up to the bigger whole as well. But you might be surprised in finding out what their perception of what is most important compared to what you think is most important. And it's, like I said, it's hard to act if. Okay, so what are some owner encouragers? What are some things that you think encourage people to act like owners?
Treating them like owners.
I always say if you want people to act like owners, you have to what? Treat them like...
Like owners.
Yeah. So what does that mean? That means when you give them a job, you trust them to do it.
Empower
you can
them.
certainly trust and verify. That's okay. It's not like there's
Especially
zero
if they're
accountability.
New, but again, if you had this person working with you for a long time, and you're still if you really need to check and double check, if you hire someone in accounting, for example, right, and if the numbers are coming out wrong, report after report after report after report, all the deposits are wrong, all the if they're not going to be there very long in that position. It's a big deal. Why isn't every job that way?
Well, and I've certainly seen situations you have as well where someone is stuck in some kind of recursive loop of not doing something well. It costs everybody else in the company, but
Right.
nobody really addresses it. So that's a
'Cause
different
Billy
picture.
Bob has been with us for 30 years, and
Which is that's
which
obviously
is fine, but
you can't keep people that are bringing the company down. But if you hire A players, like for example Netflix does, they say we only hire A players,
Right.
and then guess what? We treat them like A players. When you do that, you open up the space for people to have a much more owner kind of mentality because you're giving them permission to screw up. You're giving them permission to make decisions.
permission to learn from their mistakes.
I mean, one of the ways you can think about it, just if you want to really get down to it, what's the budget allotment for the people at your company at every level? I've been in some companies where I talked to VPs and they could only spend, $5,000, and this is a multi-billion-dollar company. It's like, wait, what? At your level, that's the highest spending authority you have. And I've been at other ones where they had much more. A much higher spending authority. Now, obviously, all that with accountability, and you got SOX, and you got all those things you have to deal with. But if you want people to act like owners, you have to treat them like owners. Then you also need to reward owner behaviors. You got to come along and say, hey, good on you. That was great. Nice job. You've got to reward that even when it doesn't work out well, even when it kind of, hey, that was, I appreciate your effort in trying to make that happen.
I love that. And sometimes some people might be listening and thinking, I don't have the money to reward them. And sometimes it's something as simple as getting yourself a box of thank you cards and writing a thank you card. Walk out from your office, go downstairs, go to that mail person that did that amazing thing last week and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. You've never met me. I'm up there. Or I heard, and say, thank you so much, right? Thank you so much for what you did for our team, for our company, for our customers.
Look, we're trying to train little Tucker right now. And one of the key things to any kind of training for a pet is reinforcement.
Yes.
So when they do something you don't want them to do, you kind of make that clear to them. But when they do something you really, really want them to do.
It's like they won the Oscars.
Yeah. Love it.
Peed on the pad. Mommy and Daddy are going to do a jumping dance, right?
Yes.
Why don't we do that for humans?
I think you get even more excited than I do. But yeah, Tucker knows when he's done something well because the praise is just lavished on him.
Right?
You were
We get tail wagging. We get, I was so good. Yes, you
yeah,
were.
and from you've been listening to a whole book on this. But what happens when you show that amount of enthusiasm, even a little puppy, even a little 14-week-old puppy goes, oh, I want some more of that. I want to do that again.
Even if he didn't get a treat, right? And you think of money as a treat, right?
Yeah.
Even if he didn't get a treat.
The praise.
The encouragement and praise, it pumps you up. I've had my manager, I didn't get anything. All the reward was, great job, Elise. And I'm like, Yes, it makes me want to go 120 miles an hour
Well,
faster.
and especially if you can acknowledge them in front of a meeting or do it,
A
just
high
in a
five.
significant
You could
way.
do a high five,
Yeah.
company high five. We had a top hat reward where you can expense lunch, right? So why not expense lunch for employees that don't have an expense account, right? You did a great thing this week. You're getting free lunch.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Okay. So, questions you need to be thinking about asking yourself if you're in a leadership position or just in general about your company. Do people come with plans or just ideas? One of the big things that I talk about in a company of owners is this whole idea that, hey, if you're going to act like an owner, you need to come with a plan, not just an idea. But people that are in companies that don't have an owner mentality, they're hesitant to do that. They may throw something out there, but they're not going to do the work. It's a big difference if someone says, hey, we ought to consider, expanding this part of our product line versus, hey, I've done the research for the last 30 days, and it turns out that our profit margin on this particular part of the profit line is XYZ. I think we've got 14 other markets we could move it into. Here's the data on them. I'd like to run a test case for 90 days and see. I mean, who says no to that, right? When you've done the homework and you've led that. So are people coming with plans or ideas? If they're just coming with ideas, you don't really have a company of owners. People aren't taking that initiative.
Yeah, and a great story for that is the lawnmower with the kid. If your kid,
I think I told that.
yeah, not on the show. No,
I'm pretty sure I told that.
let's tell it again.
Okay. So it's in the book, but the basic gist of it is if your child comes and says, I want to buy a lawnmower, we need to buy a new lawnmower, you're probably going to say no.
The old one works just fine.
Yeah, but if they came and said, "Hey, I've been doing some research. Our mower's having problems. There's these 3 different, models. This is the one I think we ought to get. It's $900, but I've also lined up 5 other yards down the street. And if you will front me the $900 to buy this mower, I'm going to start this little lawn business, and within 60 days, I'm going to reimburse you all of your money plus 20%, profit on it. Hey, what do you think?" Then what are you going to say?
Ownership. Talk about ownership. How can you say no to that?
It's absolutely, you're going to be all over that. Okay, so come with plans, not just an idea. Do we have high engagement? If you don't have high engagement at your company, you do not have a company of owners. You've got a company that at whatever level is not investing in people and not investing in all sorts of things. Could be training, leadership is, jacked up, but you're not creating that owner mentality because a high engagement goes with an owner company. It just does. By the way, and I've got to say something.
What is it?
People get real confused when I talk about a company of owners, even sometimes when I talk to the book. I'm not talking about literal ownership, although a lot of people own stock in the company.
Which
I'm
helps.
I'm not talking about whether they're actually the owners or, that you need to develop an ESOP or all of that. I'm not talking about the technical, financial side of things. I'm really talking about the mentality, right? I'm talking about a company where people have an owner mentality. Okay. Are people rewarded or scolded for taking initiative? You need to ask yourself that question and look at that realistically.
Right. When you think of Sally that comes up with some great idea or brings a plan and they get slapped, right? No, we've done it this way for 60 years. Slap. I mean, at some point she just stops.
Shut down,
She just says
maybe even criticized.
Nothing I say gets anywhere anyway. So.
And that happens all the time in companies. It happens subtly. It happens not so subtly. And when you are constantly, just kind of rapping people on the hand for taking initiative, guess what? At some point, they're going to quit coming up with initiative. I was talking to a guy at a plant that I was doing some work at, and he told me he said something, and I said, "Man, you've been here a long time, and you seem to really know your stuff. I bet you have a lot of ideas." And he said, "No, I shut off my idea factory years ago." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I just got so tired of them not being listened to, them being criticized and being shut down. And I finally just said, I'm going to come to work and do my job. That's not my job, evidently." And what a travesty for this company. I remember asking him, I said, "Well, look, I want to encourage you. We're trying to change things around here that maybe you think about turning those ideas back on." He was like, "Okay, well, we'll see. We'll kind of wait and see." Mm-hmm. But that's what happens when you scold or you don't follow up on. Okay.
Great story, if I could just add it.
Yep.
We attended a culture conference in Santa Fe recently, and the chief heart officer, is that her title?
I think so. We've got so many chief
Heart officer
titles coming out
and
now.
she told the story about how they check in, on their
Are you
staff.
talking about Claude Silver?
Yes.
I love Claude Silver. I had a great phone call with her this week. She works for VaynerMedia, and
Yes.
she's just a phenomenal person. So
Great lady. I don't
Okay,
remember the story exactly, but what I do remember is that she checks in on the staff every once in a while. Here and there, she'll grab people or not grab people or schedule. But they had too many. Were they producers in the Budweiser account? What are they?
I don't know, but too many cooks in the kitchen.
Too many
basically.
cooks in the
Yeah.
kitchen, basically, and this one guy stopped speaking up, right?
Yeah.
And when she asked him why he wasn't contributing and why he felt that his job wasn't, interesting and he was bored, and he said that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I never get to give an idea because they take their ideas before they even get to me, right? So she suggested that they take some of the cooks out of the kitchen and move them elsewhere so that we
That's
can
just
get more engagement, right?
Paying attention, and all of that started by asking a question. By
Right.
the way, you want people to act like owners. You need to ask questions. You need to
Check in on them.
you need to do a lot more ask than tell. We talked about that from a style standpoint. Excuse me, but particularly if you want people to act like owners, instead of just telling them what to do, you need to get their input. Need to get their opinion.
Ask them, what do you think? What do you think?
What do you think about this? What do you think we
think?
should do about this? Okay, so all of this is based, of course, after that conversation, I wrote the book, A Company of Owners. If you have it, fantastic. Hopefully you have it and have read it. And if you haven't written an Amazon review, I would love one of those. If you haven't read it, what are you thinking? Run, don't walk to your device and order A Company of Owners. It just continues to grow, and its impact and the kind of feedback we get on it is phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Okay, you ready to Martinize something?
I am. Let's Martinize.
I am sick and tired of walking into places where I have been before and the internet logs me on but doesn't really log me on. It is so frustrating because I can't tell you how many times I've walked around the airport or walked around some hotel chain or the Admirals Club, whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, because I keep my Wi-Fi on. Do you keep your Wi-Fi on
Yeah,
all the time?
all the time.
Yeah, I do too. So
It shows that the Wi-Fi is there, and you keep refreshing, and keep saying internet is not connecting. You're like,
Yeah,
but
or-
the Wi-Fi is connected. It's
or
showing
you're
me it's
trying to
connected.
do a function like, you're going to post on your Facebook or you're checking a message or whatever, and it just hangs up and it's just doing nothing. And I finally have figured out, this is, and a lot of the times it is not worth it for me to stop. I'm in mid, especially at the airport. I'm carrying bags. I've got stuff. I'm trying to make something happen.
Right.
And to have to go fake log into a site, because this is the path I've figured out. You have to go like you're going to go to a new website. If you go to an old website, it's going to keep doing it. But you go to a new website and then it will pop up and say, oh, hey, do you want to join our network? No, I joined your network like 20 times already in the last, 6 months. I don't want to join. Yes, I want to join. You already have it. Why do I have to approve this? And I know there's all sorts of legalities, and all IT people don't call and scream at me. But it's just frustrating. Instead of a big alert coming up saying, hey, do you want to join the network right now? That's why you're not getting service. You just don't get service until you figure it
Why
out.
doesn't the original pop-up say, would you like to join this network indefinitely until you turn it off?
Yes, or you've joined this network before. Like, okay, that's the way it works at our house, right?
Yeah, most
when
of
I
the
walk into
computers-
our house, boom, I'm automatically connected.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is then I turn the Wi-Fi off because it's easier just to switch over to cellular data. And I turn the Wi-Fi off. And now when I come home, I realize for a day, I've been operating without Wi-Fi. Why? Because I turned my Wi-Fi off. So anyway, it's a little pet peeve. This is
It could be something that Apple and iPhone and Samsung and all those companies need to look into. And it could be something to do with the internet being refreshed. But it's more than likely probably the phone. Because my computer doesn't do that.
yeah.
My computer, if it's not connected, it's showing an empty triangle, upside
It
down
gives you
triangle,
something.
right?
So somebody
It's
fix
empty.
that, please.
Yeah.
If you would.
Somebody fix it.
Fix it. Okay, so that's a wrap.
Don't forget to
Go
subscribe.
check your company out. Do you have a company of owners?
Get
If
the
you
book.
don't, start today to build
You'll
one.
love it.
And we would be happy to help you with that any way that we can as well.
Visit
So,
our website, fill a form.
yep, DarenMartin.com. All
Yep.
right, peace out.
Peace
Thank you.
out.